If you had a childhood, you definitely remember Teen Titans, that colorful, lighthearted cartoon packed with jokes and an unhealthy amount of pizza. It was the definition of Saturday morning fun. But what if DC decided to grab all that nostalgia and toss it into a blender filled with depression, broken bones, and lighting so dark it feels like they forgot to pay the electric bill? That's exactly where Titans comes in. Forget that green pants Boy Scout Robin. Here, the showrunner decided Dick Grayson needed to spiral into an early midlife crisis, beating up criminals with slasher movie brutality and dropping some controversial lines about Batman. The pitch was an adult and edgy reimagining, but what we got instead feels like a chaotic soap opera where the writers picked plot points out of a bingo cage. There's an amnesiac alien, a tiger going for someone's jugular, and storylines that often make absolutely no logical sense. Basically, they took our favorite heroes and shoved them into a group therapy session that never actually works. Today, we're diving headfirst into this gothic mess that tried way too hard to be serious and ended up feeling like a full-blown collective fever dream. The story plunges us into an atmosphere so dark that DC probably forgot to pay the electric bill. Rachel, our favorite brooding goth, dreams of two acrobats splattering like pancakes onto the circus floor. She wakes up screaming, but her mom tries to sell the idea that everything is fine, even though the house has more crucifixes than the Vatican during a clearance sale.
Take a breath, honey. Just calm down.
Watching his parents fall. Oh, God.
In Detroit, we meet Dick Grayson, who's living through his lonely, rebellious phase, ghosting his work partners because he's from Gotham and has unresolved emotional baggage. Meanwhile, Rachel sips coffee from a tacky motivational mug until her mother is murdered by a generic thug who gets shot immediately after. This leaves the girl alone in the world, only to be called a freak and a slut at school, because teenagers are hormonal monsters. But back to Dick, who decides to bust a drug deal with the subtlety of a rhino in a china shop. This Robin isn't the green pixie shorts boy wonder you know. He smashes thugs' faces into car windows, snaps bones, and after finishing off a goon with the brutality of a Mortal Kombat fatality, he drops the line that defines his early midlife crisis: "Fuck Batman."
Fuck Batman.
While Dick treats his wounds shirtless to guarantee the ratings, Rachel flees to Detroit and falls for the pitch of a social worker named Sally, who actually has the kindness of a cactus and tries to sell the girl. Dick arrives to interrogate Rachel, but she recognizes him from her dream, making the vibe weirder than a family reunion on Christmas Eve. Out of nowhere, we cut to Austria, where a woman with a disco wig wakes up in a wrecked car next to a corpse. She can't remember her own name, but she knows she goes by Corey Anders, dresses like she's headed to carnival, and incinerates people with flamethrowers coming out of her hands. She finds a guy tied up in a hotel closet and, like a lady, snaps his neck after getting the info she wanted. Back in Detroit, Dick tries to be the reluctant hero, but a corrupt cop kidnaps Rachel for a satanic ritual in a warehouse. Dick shows up with his gun, but Rachel decides she doesn't need a babysitter and unleashes her inner demon, shredding the kidnapper with a darkness that would make horror movies weep. Dick sees the carnage, realizes the girl is trouble, and decides to take her for a ride. Oh, and Beast Boy appears for 5 seconds, stealing a video game and turning into a tiger, just to prove he's in the episode. The episode starts with Hawk hanging from chains, being tortured by a group of criminals mocking his outfit. A creep decides to play doctor, jabbing blades into the hero and asking if he can pull down his pants. But before things turn into a questionable adult film, Dove shows up, cutting the lights and kicking ass, saving her useless boyfriend who clearly enjoys the beating. Hawk, also known as Hank, has to take ice baths and pop pills just to endure the pain of existing, while Dove, or Dawn, watches him with the look of someone tired of taking care of a man who breaks easier than glass. They have a romantic moment on the roof watching pigeons, because nothing says eternal love like birds that crap on people's heads. But it's clear Hank is having performance issues in areas of life that don't involve kicking thugs. Meanwhile, Dick and Rachel are on an awkward Midwest road trip. Dick tries to play the responsible dad by banning Game of Thrones, while Rachel Googles him and discovers her new guardian is a Gotham playboy. They take refuge at Hawk and Dove's apartment, where the tension is heavier than Batman's suit. Dick is Dove's ex, and the current Hawk is so jealous you can practically feel the toxic testosterone leaking through the screen. In parallel, a family that looks like they stepped out of a 1950s margarine commercial is activated by a mysterious man. They drug themselves, kill Dick's partner in Detroit, and head out to hunt Rachel. Dick, being the genius he is, asks Alfred for money and tries to bribe Hawk and Dove into taking care of Rachel, essentially trying to sell the kid. Dove finds out and is pissed, Hawk finds out and is pissed, and Rachel unleashes her darkness, shattering every window because nobody can stand this soap opera drama anymore. The nuclear family crashes the party, wrecking everything. Dick and Hawk try to fight but get embarrassingly beaten. The ending is tragic and predictable. Dove is tossed off the roof, landing with the grace of a sack of potatoes. Rachel is kidnapped by the smiling psychopaths, and Dick is left getting his ex CPR, realizing his plan to dump the girl on others was a monumental failure. Corey, our favorite amnesiac pyromaniac, decides that following children is a healthy hobby and tracks the nuclear family to a gas station. While Rachel tries to escape through the bathroom, Corey handles the situation her way, incinerating the dad with a fire blast that would make a dragon jealous. Rachel, seeing that this crazy woman is the only one getting things done, hitches a ride with her. While driving, Corey tries to figure out who she is, but Rachel isn't much help since touching Corey reveals nothing but heat and a questionable sense of fashion. They stop at a diner where Corey intimidates the locals and celebrates her tough gal vibe before heading to a convent where the nuns seem to know way too much. We get emotional flashbacks of a young Dick Grayson being adopted by Bruce Wayne. The kid, ungrateful like every rich fictional orphan, steals a Porsche and goes for a joyride because, according to the social worker, he wants to feel in control. Basically, the kid was playing real-life GTA before becoming Robin and channeling his rage into beating up the poor. In the present, Dick uses back tech to track Corey and Rachel to a skating rink. There, Rachel plays pinball and trades awkward glances with Gar, Beast Boy, in a teenage flirtation that is painful to watch. When Dick arrives, the family reunion turns into a shouting match in the parking lot until Rachel explodes car windows again with her demonic PNS. Meanwhile, the nuclear family, now missing Barbecue Dad, gets a lecture from Dr. Adamson, who threatens to kill them but decides to give them a new papa instead, because assassins deserve foster homes too. The big reveal? Rachel's father is the harbinger of the apocalypse, and the girl is the key to the end of the world. Just a minor detail. Back at the convent, Corey and Dick find a secret basement filled with photos of Rachel and an alien tanning bed. Corey hears a recording of herself speaking Russian and realizes she's been hunting the girl this whole time. The nuns decide to drug and lock Rachel up to stop the apocalypse, which ironically causes the girl to snap and blow up the entire convent. Corey confirms that Rachel is the destroyer of worlds, as the girl runs into the woods leaving a trail of destruction and traumatized nuns behind. While Rachel runs through the forest determined to freeze to death or find a squirrel to talk to, she doesn't notice she's being followed by a green tiger, perfectly normal in her life. Gar, deciding that scaring goth girls in the snow is a great flirting technique, reveals himself and stops her from turning deer into demonic rugs. When hunters try to bag Bambi, Rachel snaps, heals the animal, and nearly sends the rednecks to the afterlife. But Gar drags her to his mansion, promising video games and orange soda, the basic diet of any mutant team. The mansion looks abandoned, but it's home to the Doom Patrol, a group of misfits that make the Titans look functionally stable. Gar tries to hide the girl, but Cliff, a man trapped in a rusty tin can that would give Iron Man tetanus just by looking at it, ruins the ruse. The chaos introduces Larry, a radioactive mummy cooking to AC/DC, and Rita, a former actress who melts like ice cream on hot asphalt when she gets nervous. Dinner is a body horror masterpiece until the chief arrives. Meanwhile, Dick and Corey continue the world's most aggressive search. Dick decides the best way to get info is to beat beat a hunter in front of his son, proving Bruce Wayne's therapy worked wonders. Corey tries to explain that bottling up emotions will make him explode, but Dick prefers acting like an emotionally constipated concrete block. At the mansion, Rachel helps heal a frozen patient, which gets the chief excited about scientific possibilities, completely ignoring ethical consent. He wants to test the girl. Gar tries to stop him and takes a tranquilizer dart to the butt for being a good friend. This triggers Rachel to summon her inner darkness and slam the chief into a wall like a rag doll. Dick arrives at the last second, hugs the girl, and the power of platonic, fatherly love deactivates demon mode. They decide to leave, and Robot Man convinces Gar to run away with them, because living in a house of horrors with a mad scientist probably isn't the peak of his social life. The group gets a lifestyle upgrade, trading orphanages and mansions for a cheap motel where hygiene is optional. Dick, in an early midlife crisis move, swaps his Porsche for a minivan, completing his transformation into a suburban soccer mom. He assembles the team for a Know Your Powers session, where Gar shows that turning into a tiger is easy, but remembering to put clothes back on is an advanced concept for his brain.
I forgot.
Corey glows like a human flashlight, and Rachel spits out black smoke that scares everyone. When asked what Dick's power is, he says keeping you alive, which is code for beating the poor with a stick. Later, Dick tries to be the stoic leader on the balcony, but Corey shows up with a bottle of tequila and decides she wants to find out what he's hiding under that emotional armor, and presumably, his pants. They drink, and they spend the night testing the motel's mattress springs, though Dick remains as emotionally locked as a Swiss bank vault even after the deed. Across town, the nuclear family gets a new papa, takes their brainwashing vitamins, and tracks the group. The attack happens at night, which is bad for Corey since she's solar-powered and becomes dead weight in the dark. While the murderous sitcom family beats everyone in the hallways, Dick is thrown through a window, lands on a car, and decides it's time to suit up as Robin. He returns throwing smoke bombs and handing out compound fractures. They capture the family, but Dr. Adamson, the manager of this circus, activates a remote self-destruct and blows his minions' heads off. Dick finds the doctor's address and goes to settle the score alone, because teamwork is for the weak. He reaches the penthouse, but Adamson calls in a private SWAT team that takes down the former Boy Wonder. Just as Dick is about to become Swiss cheese, a smoke bomb explodes, and another Robin enters the fray, saving his skin and introducing himself as the updated, more violent version of the hero. Now we have an awkward road trip with two Robins, the depressed classic model and the 2.0 psychopath version. Jason Todd is vibrating with joy to meet his idol, while Dick looks at him with the disdain of someone seeing his replacement wearing his old unwashed uniform. Jason loves the violence, the fame, and being Batman's favorite punching bag, while Dick tries to remove a tracker from his own arm in a gas station bathroom, proving the trust between him and Bruce is non-existent. Jason shows off crime scene photos to lighten the mood. The melting man is killing people from Dick's old circus with acid, a Maroney family signature. They track the last target, Clay, to a club in Milwaukee. Jason is barred because he has the face of a fetus, but Dick gets in and finds his old guardian. Of course, everything goes sideways. An explosion happens, and Clay is kidnapped by the villain, who turns out to be Nick, the son of the guy who killed Dick's parents. Basically, it's a family reunion based on revenge and chemical burns. Dick rushes to save the day, but Jason decides to test his skills by beating up cops who were in the way, snapping bones and laughing like he's playing GTA with invincibility cheats. Dick is horrified to see that the new Robin is basically a homicidal maniac with an R on his chest. While Dick saves Clay and disarms the villain with guilt and punches, Jason shows up and nearly gets himself killed, taking an acid shot to the chest that only ruins his suit's symbol. In the end, Dick realizes the Robin mantle turns kids into unstable weapons, and decides Jason is what happens when you lack proper adult supervision. They part ways with Dick, more traumatized than ever. He calls Corey and tells her not to kill their prisoner, Adamson, but Corey, being the chaos queen she is, wakes the guy up. Adamson, with a smile that says he knows too much, claims he'll only talk to Rachel, ensuring this team's group therapy will cost a fortune. While Dr. Adamson plays amateur surgeon by slitting his own throat with a broken thermometer just to prove a point, Rachel shows she has serious boundary issues and heals the old man's neck instantly. The doctor reveals that Rachel's mother, Angela, is alive and imprisoned in an asylum that looks like a B-movie horror set. This is enough of a trigger for Rachel to flip into rebellious teen mode, ignore all of Dick's common sense, and run into danger, taking Gar along as a pet and human shield. Dick and Corey, playing the roles of the divorced, irresponsible parents of this dysfunctional group, chase after the kids only to be captured and humiliated in record time. Dick is drugged to the gills and starts hallucinating an internal battle against his younger self, where he gets beaten up by a kid dressed like a traffic light elf, proving his Batman issues are so deep he needs intensive therapy, not a staff. While Dick is tripping on mental mayo, Adamson tries to convince Rachel to summon her demon father, blackmailing her with footage of her friends being tortured. Bad move. Rachel decides the conversation is over, uses her gothic powers to unheal the doctor's throat, and leaves him bleeding on the floor like an open faucet. She finds her mom and starts the rescue, letting Gar out of his cage. The Tiger Boy finally loses his homicidal virginity and chews through a scientist's jugular, discovering that extra meat tastes like chicken. With the team reunited and Dick awake from his traumatic beauty sleep, they decide the best way out is total destruction. Dick pummels guards with the fury of someone who missed their tax deadline, while Corey torches the entire asylum because subtlety was never her thing. In the middle of the fire, Dick throws his Robin suit into the flames in a dramatic bid to say goodbye to the past, though everyone knows he'll just find another tight leather outfit soon. They escape with Rachel's mom, leaving nothing behind but ashes and unresolved trauma. Right after turning an asylum into a barbecue, Dick decides the best way to handle his problems is to abandon everyone again. He packs his bags and goes looking for balance, which basically means crying on the shoulder of Donna Troy, aka Wonder Girl, who is now a hipster photographer. Meanwhile, the rest of the Junior Suicide Squad, now supervised by Mama Angela, takes a train to Ohio because nothing screams safety like interstate public transport with an amnesiac alien who suffers from blackouts. At Donna's place, Dick tries to act like a normal civilian at an art gallery, but fails miserably when Donna leaves to negotiate with poachers. Apparently, ex-heroes can't go 5 minutes without getting involved in environmental crimes. Dick pummels the poachers in the dark while Donna tries to take artistic photos of dead bears, proving their retirement is as real as a $3 bill. Donna then translates the alien text on Dick's phone and discovers Corey isn't a space nanny, but an exterminator sent to kill Raven. Back on the stray train, Corey gets hammered and nearly incinerates a snitch bartender who called the cops. She flees the train cosplaying as a Human Torch and reunites with the group later. When they reach Angela's abandoned house in Ohio, Corey starts getting headaches that even ibuprofen can't fix. Rachel, in her infinite naivety, decides to use her healing powers on her. Obviously, it goes horribly wrong. The hearing restores Corey's memories, and she immediately remembers her mission to kill the girl. She grabs Rachel with the delicacy of a tractor, and her eyes glow green, signaling that snack time is over, and alien domestic violence is about to begin. Exactly when the main story was getting interesting with an alien about to murder a child, the script pulls the handbrake and tosses us into a giant flashback about Hank and Dawn. We discover Hank was a college football player with serious rage issues caused by a creep coach. To protect his brother Donnie, Hank accepted the abuse in silence, which explains why he hits people with such gusto in the present.
Martha, 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 Martha. Let me go. Batman and Robin, you got company.
After his sports career was cut short by concussions that turned his brain to mush, Hank and Donnie reinvented themselves as the vigilantes Hawk and Dove, beating down criminals, because therapy is expensive and breaking bones is free. Meanwhile, we learn the origin of Dawn, a ballerina dealing with an abusive father and a mother who can't leave the deadbeat. Their fates cross when Dawn's mom and Donnie die in the same stupid accident caused by a runaway truck, proving that crossing the street in this universe is more dangerous than fighting the Joker. Hank and Dawn meet in a support group and instead of crying, decide the best way to handle devastating grief is to hook up and hit bad people. Dawn discovers Hank's dark secrets and goes after the coach, ready for some vigilante justice. Hank arrives in time to finish the job, turning the coach's face into mashed potatoes. They share a romantic post-beating moment, sealing their fate as the show's most broken and codependent duo. Back in the present, Dawn wakes from her coma screaming that they need to find Jason Todd, because apparently Rachel used the psychic Wi-Fi to call for help. Chloe decides the best way to show affection is to test the durability of Rachel's windpipe with her bare hands. Proving true friendship involves occasionally trying to kill your friends. Before the alien can turn the girl's throat into a piece of abstract art, Dick and Donna arrive to knock the orange woman out and end the party.
Stop.
Rachel's mom, Angela, plays the insufferable mother-in-law and tells Corey to get lost. But Rachel, suffering from acute Stockholm syndrome, defends her attacker, saying it was all her fault. While the dysfunctional family tries to play house in the middle of nowhere, Dick and Donna follow Corey to an abandoned factory, because nothing screams safe tourism like entering decaying warehouses. Inside, they stumble upon an invisible spaceship casually parked in the living room, which brings Corey's memory back in full. She remembers she had to kill Rachel to stop her demon father, Trigon, from using the girl as a portal to turn the universe into a giant barbecue. Basically, Corey had one job, forgot it, and now realizes the deadline has passed. Meanwhile, Angela is in the garden tending to the plants and murdering curious sheriffs who ask too many questions, proving insanity is hereditary. Gar, being the weakest link in the evolutionary chain, starts bleeding from his mouth and collapses in the bathroom, probably regretting eating Angela's food, or just being useless as usual. With no way to heal the Tiger Boy and Sheriff Tommy already serving as fertilizer, Angela convinces Rachel that the only logical solution is to summon Satan himself. Rachel, desperate and dumb, brings her father into this dimension. Trigon appears, heals Gar just to show off, and immediately goes to hook up with Rachel's mom. Priorities.
My child.
While the lovers catch up on small talk and bodily fluids, Dick comes running to save the day but hits an impenetrable force field. He's left outside banging on the invisible door while the house turns into the Apocalypse Motel, setting the stage for what should be an epic finale, but will probably just be more psychological trauma for Robin's collection. Suddenly, we are tossed into an alternate reality where Dick Grayson is living the margarine commercial dream in California. Pool, sun, and a pregnant Dawn. Because apparently, retired vigilantes become lifestyle influencers. Everything is perfect until Jason Todd shows up in a wheelchair, proving that being Robin has the worst workplace safety in the world. The paraplegic warns that Batman has finally gone Joker and is about to kill the clown prince of crime, begging the real Robin to return to Gotham. Dick tries to ignore it, but reality starts glitching like a Ubisoft game at launch, forcing him back to the city that smells like sewage and despair. Once there, he finds out Batman isn't playing around and has already sent the Joker to hell, deciding to take his zero-tolerance policy to the extreme. Dick invades Wayne Manor trying to use the power of dialogue but finds Corey working for the FBI, which is the funniest joke in the entire episode. Chaos reigns as Batman decides to pull a massacre at Arkham Asylum, killing guards, nurses, and anyone breathing, turning the Dark Knight into the Punisher with a billionaire's budget. Dick snitches Bruce's identity to the police and leads a SWAT team to raid the manor, but Batman, using his infinite prep time, eliminates everyone and even kills Corey with a freeze gun, turning the alien into an exotic popsicle.
He's not gonna work. Get out of there. He's got a cold gun. Take it down. Repeat. Take it down.
Out of options and totally pissed off, Dick blows up the entire mansion. In the rubble, he finds a still-living Bruce and in a moment of pure edgelord catharsis, snaps his mentor's neck. But surprise, it was all a prank orchestrated by Trigon. In real life, Dick was just standing in the room tripping on demonic hallucinations. The manipulation works perfectly, and Dick wakes up with black eyes and heavy goth makeup, embracing the darkness and joining the devil's happy family, leaving Rachel horrified to see her hero turn into the ultimate emo. Meanwhile, the rest of the Titans arrive at the house, including Jason, Hank, and Dawn, thinking they're actually going to make a difference. Spoiler alert, they won't. Trigon decides to play with his food, letting everyone in just to torture them with cheap illusions of their worst nightmares. In the blink of an eye, all the heroes are corrupted.
You're here.
You know what to do.
Corey kills Rachel in her mind, Jason shoots Dick, Hank and Dawn go back to using drugs, and everyone stands around looking like idiots in the living room under the demon's thrall. Gar and Rachel try to save the day, but evil Dick beats the crap out of Gar with a brutality that borders on the comical, tossing the tiger boy around like a rag doll. With Gar nearly turned into a floor mat, Rachel begs her father for help. Corey kills Rachel in her mind, Jason shoots Dick, Hank and Dawn go back to using drugs.
With this, you have the power to...
Trigon heads out to destroy the world, thinking he's already won, but he forgot about the power of plot armor. Gar, even though he's broken and beaten, grabs Rachel's hand and uses a Talk no Jutsu motivational speech to bring her back. Rachel enters Dick's mind, pulls off a nostalgic circus acrobatics move, and just like that, years of trauma are cured by a backflip. With the team recovered, Rachel steps outside and literally defeats the all-powerful interdimensional being in 10 seconds, turning the big bad into cosmic dust with the ease of someone swatting a fly. With the world saved and the CGI budget exhausted, the team decides the best place to live is San Francisco. They move into Titan's Tower, ready for new disasters. But peace is short-lived because a one-eyed old man named Slade Wilson sees Jason on TV and decides to come out of retirement, proving that geriatric villains never get tired of beating up costumed teenagers. 3 months have passed since the Red Demon was kicked back to hell, and America's favorite team of misfits has decided to reopen the Hero Daycare in San Francisco. Dick, Jason, Rachel, and Gar are pretending they know how to train, but the only thing they're really developing is the audience's patience. Jason, the second Robin and wannabe delinquent, is more restless than a kid on a road trip, begging to go back to Wayne Manor, but Daddy Bat thinks he's still too unstable. Meanwhile, Rachel sleeps with the peacefulness of a horror movie, waking up with claw marks on her body because apparently her father trauma comes with free shipping and overnight delivery. On the other side of the country, Corey and Donna are playing detective in Chicago, hunting down a criminal named Shimmer. Corey, who decided Earth is way more fun than her boring home planet, captures the villain with the ease of crushing a roach. But the joy is short-lived when a simp alien named Fidei shows up, calls her Your Highness, and kidnaps her with a space taser, proving that she can't get a decent date even in another galaxy. Meanwhile, Hank and Dawn are living the rustic dream on a ranch, helping an addict named Ellis recover. Hank is focused on keeping bad influences away, but Dawn decides the best way to cure boredom is to shoot up and beat down drug dealers in a lab. When she gets home, the domestic dispute is interrupted because Ellis walks into the room glowing brighter than a Christmas tree and blows up the whole house. Yes, the kid turned into a human microwave thanks to Dr. Light, forcing Hank and Dawn to ditch the farm life and head back into action. Back in San Francisco, Dick finds a new charity project in the form of a silver-haired girl jumping off 7-story buildings. He drags the stranger to the tower, ignores every warning that this is a terrible idea, and tries the classic "I can help you" speech. She refuses, but accepts a phone, because even fugitives need 5G. But before she can vanish, Dick's car explodes, nearly turning them both into BBQ. Jason, playing detective, finds the motive for the hit, but Trigon prefers to rip his daughter's heart out of her chest and turn it into a forehead jewel, completing her macabre look. Titan's Tower has officially become a hostel for traumatized heroes, and the repressed sexual tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Hank, Dawn, and Donna arrive with the energy of people who'd rather be getting a colonoscopy. They're only there to snuff out Dr. Light and leave, making it very clear they hate Dick and his questionable leadership choices. Donna nearly has a stroke seeing Deathstroke's daughter on the couch, but Dick decides to shove that problem in a drawer to deal with later. The team discovers Dr. Light is siphoning energy from a football stadium to recharge his batteries. The OG Titans corner the villain, but Dick hesitates on the finishing blow because a bus passes in front of him. Yes, the world's greatest detective was stopped by public transit. The villain escapes, and the team returns to the tower fuming, questioning if these rookies even know how to tie their shoelaces, let alone fight supervillains. Somewhere on a parked ship, Corey deals with Fade, the royal guard who stole a necklace just to impress his boss. The poor guy tries to convince her to return and take the throne, but Corey gets a call from Rachel and decides being a nanny to a goth teen is more important than ruling a planet. She locks the alien in the ship like a dog in a hot car and leaves, proving the friend zone is intergalactic. Things get worse when Jason, fed up with being benched, convinces Gar to go into the sewers to hunt Dr. Light themselves. Jason thinks he's a shonen protagonist and manages to trade a few punches with the glowing villain, but reality hits hard in the form of Deathstroke. Slade Wilson appears out of nowhere, and before Jason can crack a sarcastic joke, he's captured. Gar only finds a trail of blood where his friend used to be, proving the only thing Jason Robin is good at is being the damsel in distress. Buckle up for a time jump, because we're about to find out why everyone in this show looks like they've been eating spoiled food for 5 years. We head back to the golden age of the original Titans, where Garth is a hormonal mess trying to win over Donna Troy. The party vibe is cut short by a blackout, and Garth uses the darkness as an excuse to keep thirsting over his co-worker. Donna, however, has her bags packed for Themyscira, wanting to escape the hero life and Garth's star-crossed fish eyes. The two investigate a bank robbery and end up talking about the past and nostalgic sodas that hurt to drink, a weird metaphor for their relationship. But the cute moment ends when they discover Dr. Light stole a nuclear laser activator. The teen corners the villain, and Garth decides to tank an energy blast with his chest so the others can take him down. Dick breaks the villain's toy, and everyone celebrates like they just won the World Cup. After the victory, Donna finally gives in to Garth's aquatic charms. They go to bed, but she flees before breakfast, leaving the poor Atlantean hugging a soda bottle. Garth, being the ultimate simp, runs to the airport and gives a love speech that would convince anyone to stay. Donna gives up on her trip, and the couple embraces in the middle of the tarmac. It's a beautiful, perfect moment that lasts exactly 3 seconds before a sniper round tears through Garth's chest. Jillian, Donna's mentor, deflects the second bullet, but the damage is done. Garth dies in his lover's arms, turning into asphalt sushi. Back at the tower in the past, Dick identifies the shooter as Deathstroke and decides the best way to get revenge is to become a cold, calculating manipulator. Dawn tells him to be the Batman, and Dick takes that literally.
Be Batman.
He tracks down Jericho, Deathstroke's son, at a record store and approaches the kid with a fake smile and macabre intentions, ready to use the child as human bait in his personal war. Congratulations, Dick. You managed to be more toxic than the villain of the story. While Garth's corpse is likely still fresh in everyone's memories, we return to the present, where Jason Todd is cosplaying a trussed-up ham in a warehouse. The boy wonder decides the best strategy while in captivity is to annoy his kidnappers with the energy of an internet troll. He manages to knock out Dr. Light, proving the villain has the durability of wet toilet paper, but is quickly intercepted by Deathstroke, who isn't playing around.
Leaving so soon.
Meanwhile, at Titan's Tower, Rachel is having an emo crisis so intense it makes every other goth teen look like a cheerleader, feeling her inner darkness is about to do something stupid. Dick and his team of misfits track the rebel Robin via a tracker Bruce implanted in him, because privacy is a concept that doesn't exist in the Bat family. They find the location, but Slade Wilson was already 3 steps ahead, executing Dr. Light with a headshot and leaving the body as a gift, proving that mercenary partnerships don't come with health insurance. Deathstroke calls and offers a simple trade, Jason's life for his daughter, Rose.
If you want him back, hand over Rose.
At the tower, the debate over handing the girl over turns into chaos. Rose tries to flee but gets beaten by Hank before facing Rachel. Trigon's daughter loses control and turns Rose into a shish kebab of shadows and broken bones. Rachel runs away thinking she's a monster, not seeing that Rose has a Wolverine-style healing factor and snaps her bones back into place like an extreme chiropractic session. Dick, realizing leading this team is like herding radioactive cats, decides to play the lonely martyr. He meets Slade and offers himself in exchange for Jason. Deathstroke laughs in his face, calls Dick a fraud who manipulates kids into cannon fodder, and shows Jason tied to a window washing platform rigged with a bomb. Corey arrives to blow everything up. The bomb detonates and Jason is left hanging by his fingertips. Dick runs and grabs his successor's hand, but apparently all those pull-ups were for nothing. The glove slips, the grip fails, and Jason plummets toward the asphalt in slow motion, reviving the DC writer's favorite trope, Robins falling from high places. In a secret lab that ignores every OSHA regulation, Subject 13 wakes up. He has no name, no clothes, and the emotional stability of a live grenade, but decides to adopt the name Connor from the poor security guard he knocks unconscious. He rescues Crypto the dog, who honestly is the smartest character in the entire show, and the two escape, leaving a trail of destruction and panicked Cadmus scientists.
Connor.
Dr. Eve Watson and Mercy Graves, basically Lex Luthor's armed nanny, begin a manhunt for the naked clone. Connor wanders the world like a child in a bodybuilder's physique, and his first lesson in heroism is saving an old lady from a mugging, only to steal her money to buy a black Superman t-shirt. Priorities. Guided by implanted memories, he heads to Kansas thinking he'll find Apple Pie and Clark Kent, but ends up at Lex Luthor's father's farm. The blind old man is confused, but the family reunion is cut short when Lex Luthor's genetic memories trigger abusive dad mode in Connor's head, causing him to snap. The Cadmus team storms the farm, shooting at everything that moves, but Connor mops the floor with them using Kryptonian super strength. Dr. Eve shows up with a van, and the bombshell revelation: Connor is the forbidden love child of a genetic mix between Superman and Lex Luthor, basically a weird Tumblr ship come to life. She decides to take her creation on a road trip to try and teach morality to a being who can blow up tanks with a breath, explaining that he has two dads and one of them is a megalomaniac bald guy. Connor tries to keep a low profile, but fate loves a forced coincidence. He sees a boy falling from the sky. It's Jason Todd, plummeting from the previous episode. Connor super leaps and catches Robin in midair before he becomes a sidewalk pancake. But no good deed goes unpunished in this show. Mercy Graves appears with kryptonite bullets and shoots Superboy in the chest, while Dick and Corey arrive to find Jason alive. The new buff hero falls in agony, proving that being a nice guy in this universe only gets you a hole in the chest and a worried dog barking at you. Meanwhile, Dick Grayson is having a full-blown mental breakdown, hallucinating a version of Bruce Wayne who acts like a mocking ghost, tap dancing on the ex-Robin's sanity. In the makeshift infirmary, the women are left to care for the dying Connor, because apparently superpowers don't exempt anyone from stereotypical gender roles. The solution to save the Kryptonian clone comes from Dr. Eve, who suggests a solar recharge. Corey, acting as a high-end human power bank, uses her Starfire powers to inject concentrated vitamin D into the guy, waking Superboy up. Meanwhile, the vibe at Titan's Tower is more toxic than Chernobyl. Jason and Rose try to have a cringe-worthy romantic moment, dancing and kissing with the chemistry of two bricks rubbing together, exuding the energy of distant cousins at a wedding. But peace is brief when cruel pranks start appearing. Bottles of booze for the ex-alcoholic Hank, nostalgic soda for Donna to remember her dead boyfriend, and crucifixes for Rachel. Everyone points the finger at Jason because he's the team's official scapegoat, completely ignoring that Deathstroke's daughter also lives there and is mentally unstable. Dick, at the height of his madness, decides to investigate Deathstroke's whereabouts by going to a burlesque club, a scene that only exists so imaginary Bruce can do a ridiculous Adam West-style dance while half women fill the show's mature quota. He realizes the true enemy isn't outside, but inside his own head. Dick gets back to the tower just in time to stop Jason from jumping off the roof, consumed by the guilt of being hated by everyone. On the roof, Dick finally drops the bomb he's been holding on to. He reveals the brutal truth to save Jason, the reason Deathstroke hates them so much, and the reason for the hallucinations. Dick confesses that he killed Jericho, Slade's son, in a failed revenge attempt years ago. Way to go, Dick.
I killed Deathstroke's son.
Nothing like confessing the manslaughter to liven up a rooftop party and ensure the Titans' group therapy never ends. We head back to 2014 because writers love a flashback to explain present-day incompetence. Dick Grayson and his gang of misfits are sitting around the campfire listening to Jericho Wilson, Deathstroke's son, tell his sob story. The kid reveals his dad, Slade, used to be cool until he became a manic super soldier. One day, thugs invaded their home, and even though Jericho killed the intruders, his throat was wounded, losing his ability to speak and gaining the superpower of being the world's most dangerous mime. While Dick fakes empathy, he's actually salivating at the chance to use the mute kid as bait to get to his father. But Jericho isn't just a silent paperweight. He reveals he can control the body of anyone he touches. Dick, with the ethics of a used car salesman, sees this and decides to recruit the boy into the Titans, completely ignoring that Slade begged his son to hide these powers so he wouldn't become a target. Jericho packs his bags against his mother's will, who calls her ex-husband, warning him that their son is being corrupted by Robin's bad influence. Dick, proving to be the worst mentor in history, uses Jericho again to locate Deathstroke. Meanwhile, Donna Troy decides to take on Slade one-on-one and ends up taking a beating so humiliating she has to hit the panic button for Daddy Dick to come save the day. Dick arrives at the location where Slade was trying to have a touching father-son moment with Jericho. Instead of talking, Robin decides to attack, turning a family reunion into a battlefield. Slade starts beating Dick with the ease of a guy fighting a drunk, and just as he delivers the killing blow to end our useless leader's misery, Jericho throws himself in front of the blade. The father watches in horror as he stabs his own son, proving the only thing Dick Grayson does with excellence is destroy other people's families. The episode ends with the OG Titans splitting up because nobody can stand to look at Dick's face after this monumental screw-up. Back in the present, Dick finally decides to tell the truth to the new team. He was responsible for Jericho's death. Hank, who was already foaming with rage and withdrawal, punches him in the face, but the group decides to do what they do best: split up. Titan's Tower becomes a ghost town, leaving only Gar to act as a high-end nanny for the comatose Connor and Crypto. Beast Boy finally gets his moment to shine managing the house, proving a green tiger is more responsible than any adult in this show. Meanwhile, Hank and Dawn end their relationship for the millionth time during a depressing karaoke moment, and Starfire discovers her sister Blackfire has taken over her home planet and killed their parents. But honestly, nobody cares about the alien subplot right now. Dick, at the peak of his emotional masochism, goes to Slade's ex-wife's house to ask for forgiveness, only to find Deathstroke himself sitting in the living room, drinking and laughing at him. Slade basically says Dick is already dead inside and promises to kill all the Titans if they ever try to reunite. Totally broken and desperate for attention, Dick goes to the airport and starts assaulting random cops just to get arrested, in a pathetic attempt at self-punishment that would give Freud a stroke. Connor, who woke up and doesn't understand how the penal system works, ends up assaulting a few officers and only makes things worse, putting Cadmus back on their radar. The episode ends with Dick being handcuffed, proving his special skill is making the worst possible decisions in record time. Dick Grayson is now officially an inmate, sharing a cell with criminals he probably helped put away, which is a great survival strategy. While he refuses legal help and does cell workouts to keep his abs shredded for the other inmates, Gar is at the tower desperately trying to call him. Since the leader is busy playing Orange is the New Black, Crypto the dog senses danger and tries to warn them, but Connor decides to take the pup for a walk and leaves the tiger boy alone. Rachel, who ran away to live as a transient, befriends a girl at a shelter. When the girl's abusive boyfriend shows up, Rachel tries to use her powers to defend her friend, but ends up summoning a stone gargoyle that comes to life and crushes the guy. Congrats, Rachel. From hero to accidental killer in 2 minutes, showing that the touch of death is contagious on this team. Meanwhile, Cadmus invades Titan's tower with an army. Connor and Gar try to fight, but they get taken down by tranquilizer darts and kryptonite. Mercy Graves, Lex Luthor's deluxe henchwoman, captures everyone and brainwashes Connor, promising to help him if he's a good boy. Back at the prison, a mass breakout occurs. Dick, instead of taking the chance to escape, decides to fight the guards to help 2 immigrants flee, but then voluntarily surrenders to take another beating, because apparently his daily humiliation quota wasn't met. Donna Troy finally arrives at Titan's tower to find the place trashed and blood on the walls, realizing too late that leaving a green teenager and an unstable clone alone might not have been the brightest idea of the year. Meanwhile, at the Cadmus labs, poor Gar is being mentally tortured by Dr. Mercy Graves, who decided to turn everyone's favorite vegan into a killing machine, erasing any memory of him ever loving anything other than raw meat. On the other side of the team drama, Jason Todd and Rose Wilson are enjoying a honeymoon in Gotham, where the couple's hobby is beating up criminals and trading intense looks like they're in a Lifetime movie. Jason, the boy wonder of annoyance, decides to open his traumatized little heart about theaters and orphanages, trying to turn an action movie into a low-budget rom-com. But Rose, who is clearly playing 4D chess while Jason plays checkers, calls Daddy Deathstroke to tell him she's bored with the game. Suddenly, Rachel wakes up in a cold sweat after dreaming that Dick was being impaled, which, honestly, would be a favor to all of us at this point. She, Starfire, Wonder Girl, and Dawn, guided by mystical hallucinations or just lazy writing, end up meeting at a middle-of-nowhere roadside diner called Elko. And who shows up to give a pep talk? None other than Bruce Wayne, or at least a version of him who knows how to use teleportation magic and loves lecturing empowered women.
Bruce?
I'm so glad you all could make it.
He tells everyone to stop whining and get back to being a team before vanishing and leaving them with the coffee bill. Back in solitary, Dick is feverish and hallucinating Bruce Wayne again, who basically calls him a coward for preferring to rot in jail than save his friends. In this drug-free acid trip, Dick finally connects 2 neurons and realizes Deathstroke's hand was shaking not from a lack of calcium, but because Jericho is alive inside him, fighting for control like a tenant who refuses to pay rent. Rachel and Starfire storm the prison to save the day, destroying walls and doors, only to find that Dick had already bailed, leaving behind nothing but a cryptic tag on the walls saying Jericho is alive. Meanwhile, Cadmus finishes brainwashing Gar, ensuring the cute green tiger is now ready to rip throats out in the next episode. Dick Grayson is finally out of prison, only to discover that Jericho has been living rent-free inside his father's head for the last 5 years. The mute boy has been trying to seize control of the old man's body, which explains Deathstroke's muscle spasms. But unfortunately, Slade is far too stubborn to tolerate a rebellious squatter. Meanwhile, Cadmus decides to field test their new toy and unleashes Beast Boy in a coffee shop full of innocent people. The green tiger has himself a bloody little snack, and when Gar regains consciousness covered in human juice, he realizes his vegan diet has gone out the window. It's a beautiful scene, perfect for traumatizing any teenager. On the other side of town, Hank has hit rock bottom, dug a hole, and kept on going. He's fighting in underground cage matches for pocket change to buy drugs. In a masterclass of failed entrepreneurship, he sells his own hawk suit for a fix. When he spots an imposter wearing his gear just to get beat up, he has to punch his way into stealing the suit back, proving his dignity was sold a long time ago. In a moment straight out of a soap opera, Jason Todd is all love-struck making corn dogs, thinking he's found his happily ever after, but Rose decides it's time to crush the boy's heart and reveals she's the team's traitor. Turns out Daddy Slade trained her, gave her a suit, and sent her to infiltrate the Titans to tear them down from the inside. A low-budget remake of the Judas Contract. Jason, looking like he just found out Santa isn't real, is devastated to realize he was played for a fool by the goth girl. Rose bails to join her father, who wants to annihilate the Titans because he believes, in his geriatric psychopath mind, that they killed his son. Dick, finally deciding to stop acting like a hobo, visits the superhero tailor Stu and asks for a new suit. After a James Bond-style scene where he admires the mannequin, Dick is ready to toss the Robin identity in the trash and take up the mantle of Nightwing. Because nothing solves family trauma like a skin-tight leather outfit. The season reaches its climax as the Titan girls plan a suicide mission against Cadmus, only to be intercepted mid-street by Deathstroke, who's cranky because he wasn't invited to the slumber party. He starts handing out bullets and sword slashes, wounding Starfire, until a shadow drops from the sky and lands on their car. It's Dick Grayson. debuting his new Nightwing cosplay and 2 electric Eskrima sticks that look like high-voltage adult toys. Dick and Slade begin their dance, with the former Robin screaming at the villain's stomach in hopes that Jericho can hear him. Just when it looks like Deathstroke is going to turn everyone into mincemeat, Rose shows up dressed as Ravager. Plot twist. She decides her dad is too toxic even by her standards and stabs him, allowing Jericho to leap from his father's body into his sister's. Now Rose has a brother living inside her, which should make shower time extremely awkward. Not satisfied yet, they rush to a carnival where Mercy Graves has organized a mutant cage match between Beast Boy and Superboy. The fight is brutal until Rachel manages to calm the big kitty down and Dick invades Connor's mind using Raven's powers to snap the boy out of evil power saving mode. Corey handles the Mercy problem the old-fashioned way, by deep frying her security team. Everything seems resolved until an electrical tower decides to fall on the crowd. Donna Troy, an Amazon with super strength capable of fighting gods and aliens, decides to hold the tower up, and she dies. Yes, Wonder Girl gets electrocuted by a faulty pole, a death so pathetic it would make a video game NPC feel secondhand embarrassment. The team holds a somber funeral. Rachel heads to Themyscira to try and resurrect her friend because death means nothing in this show, and Bruce Wayne shows up to deliver one more moral lesson about family, revealing his appearance at the diner was all in Rachel's head. In the end, they all have dinner and toast with orange soda, pretending Donna didn't die in the dumbest way possible. In the post-credits scene, an alien goo possesses a mom at the grocery store, turning her into the villain Blackfire, because peace is something this group definitely hates. Jason Todd decides the best way to get over the trauma of almost dying is to attempt a coup against Batman. But when Bruce ignores his suggestions and goes back to drinking his depressive bat juice, Jason says screw you to the Joker and decides to face the clown alone at the amusement park. Unfortunately, the only thing he achieves is getting beaten into a pulp, proving his armor offers about as much protection as a wet napkin. Meanwhile, in San Francisco, Dayton Labs creates a mysterious serum that attracts the attention of Gizmo, a villain who looks like a rejected Funko Pop. Nightwing, Beast Boy, Starfire, and Connor show up for the mandatory beatdown, but the real star is Krypto, who probably has a higher IQ than the rest of the team combined. They win easily, but the party ends when they find out Jason Todd has been promoted to Corpse in Gotham. In Gotham, we meet Tim Drake, an irrelevant delivery boy who only serves to remind us there's always a spare Robin in the wings. Dick rushes to Wayne Manor and finds out Bruce has already buried Jason and killed the Joker with the same casualness of someone paying a late utility bill. That man is acting like a functional sociopath, which isn't exactly news, but it worries Dick enough to convince Commissioner Barbara Gordon to come to dinner at the manor. Dinner is a disaster, with Bruce obsessed with recruiting more kids for his personal war before Jason's body is even cold. Barbara calls him crazy, a clinically accurate diagnosis, and leaves. Dick investigates Jason's room and discovers the kid was huffing yellow chemicals to get a power-up, then beats up a random guy in a warehouse just to stay in shape. Finally, Dick confronts Bruce about trying to turn every street kid into a soldier. Batman, in a sudden burst of either maturity or senility, decides he's done with this life, tosses the keys to Gotham to Dick, and vanishes, leaving the world's most dangerous city in the hands of his former sidekick.
Do what I couldn't. Be a better Batman.
Oh, and Corey starts hallucinating and gets teleported to a sidewalk because this alien's life is one eternal bad trip. The Joker's death has left a power vacuum in Gotham, so all the crime bosses gather for a little get-together at the Hobbs Powder House. But the meeting is interrupted when a bag full of heads drops onto the table, proving the new villain doesn't believe in corporate emails. Red Hood announces he's now the majority shareholder of crime and demands 40% of the profits, a management fee that would make the government jealous. With Bruce missing in action, Dick takes over as Gotham's babysitter and summons the Titans to help. Corey, Gar, Connor, and Crypto arrive to turn the Batcave into a hostel. Even Dawn and Hank show up, proving their relationship is more of a yo-yo than the stock market. Hank is pissed about the distance, but Dawn is happy being Dove without the dead weight by her side. Things get ugly when Red Hood starts forcing random citizens to wear masks and blow things up. Dick visits Scarecrow at Arkham Asylum, who's now acting as a police consultant and smoking some suspicious weed while talking about chess. He gives a tip about the Birds opening, which leads the Titans to chase useless clues while kidnapped parents are forced to rob banks to save their kids. The Titans try to stop a robbery but fail miserably because Beast Boy finds the hostages too late. Barbara is furious with Dick's incompetence, reminding us why they broke up, while Corey accidentally burns down the Wayne Manor kitchen during another crazy hallucination. Gar uses his hamster brain to figure out the next move, the Hobbs Gambit. Dick goes alone to face Red Hood and takes a humiliating beating, apparently forgetting how to fight. The brawl ends when he rips off part of the villain's helmet and discovers the dead kid is very much alive. Jason Todd hasn't just resurrected, he's back with a villainy upgrade and a much more stylish wardrobe, ready to take over the city his father abandoned.
Bruce always told me you were better than me with the toys.
Jason?
In living color. I got a new name now, though. Red Hood.
Hank Hall decides the best family therapy is murdering Jason Todd, spending the whole episode foaming at the mouth while Dawn tries to calm her meathead boyfriend down. But Jason, who is now a top-tier manipulator, calls Hank crying like a baby who lost his pacifier, saying he's terrified of Dick. Hank, being the genius he is, falls for the most obvious trap in history and goes to meet the former Robin in an abandoned gym. The result of this stupidity is predictable. Hank appears at the tower with a bomb strapped to his chest, synchronized with his heartbeat. Basically, if he gets worked up or tries to run, he turns into fireworks. Jason demands gold bars in exchange for the Hawk's life, but Dick, with his cold leader persona, refuses to negotiate with terrorists, even if the terrorist is his rebellious little brother. While Connor tries to use his super intelligence and speed to build a deactivator, Dawn decides she won't let her boyfriend become a human barbecue and steals an armored truck full of gold. She takes the cash to Jason, who decides to play a game of Saw and hands her a gun. The rule is simple. She has to kill Red Hood to save Hank. Dawn, ignoring every heroic instinct, points the gun at Jason's head and pulls the trigger. But Red Hood trolled everyone. The gun wasn't a gun, it was the detonator. The moment she fires, the bomb detonates right in front of Connor, who arrived 2 seconds too late. Jason leaves laughing, Dawn is traumatized, and the Titans lose another member because stupidity seems to be this team's strongest superpower. With Hank dead, Dawn decides she's done playing superhero and bails on the show, leaving Dick alone to deal with the emotional wreckage. But since Nightwing has the maturity of a fence post, he handles his grief by doing the most sensible thing possible, kidnapping a high-security psychiatric patient during a police transfer. Dick intercepts Jonathan Crane's transport and takes him to a romantic cabin in the woods, convinced that a psychological torture session will solve his problems. Meanwhile, back at Wayne Manor, Corey is having visions that would make any junkie jealous. She loses control and nearly turns Gar into a vegan green tiger kebab with a starfire blast. After Beast Boy manages to calm the fiery woman down, she decides the best therapy is a road trip to nowhere. Obviously, this ends with Corey blacking out and waking up in the middle of nowhere, guided by her hallucinations to a secret hatch that looks like a set from a low-budget horror movie.
That's good.
My sister's down that hole.
She might be, among many other things.
Down there, they find a mad scientist, essentially a creepy Titans fanboy, who's keeping Blackfire captive in a power-dampening cell. The sisters have a warm family reunion involving face-punching and attempted murder. But since family is everything, Corey decides to free her psychopathic sister because the script demands it. The trio, now consisting of an assassin alien, a confused alien, and a pet tiger, hits the road. Back in the main plot, Red Hood lures Dick into an obvious trap that our favorite genius swallows whole. They start trading blows and insults, with Jason acting like the spoiled brat he is. Dick was close to winning based on experience, but a Gotham PD helicopter shows up to ruin the party. A sniper cop shoots Nightwing in the shoulder. Jason runs away, and Dick heads to the cabin. We flash back 3 months to find out why Jason turned into such a resentful emo. Turns out that after nearly dying at the hands of Deathstroke, the kid was traumatized and wakes up every night screaming, which ruins Batman's beauty sleep. Bruce, with his impeccable parenting skills, forces Jason into therapy therapy with Dr. Leslie Tompkins, or else he loses the Robin suit. Jason, being the stereotypical rebellious teen, hates the idea and decides to prove his worth by investigating missing kids with a friend named Molly. But in the heat of the moment, when he confronts a generic thug named Hawkins, Jason freezes up like a glitchy PC and gets trashed because the trauma hits too hard. Bruce finds out and decides to fire Jason from the Robin role, saying he's too unstable. Jason takes the news with the maturity of a 5-year-old and decides the best way to cure his fear is to have a chat with Scarecrow at Arkham Asylum. Jason breaks into Crane's cell and offers the only thing he has of value, his dignity and a sample of Batman's fear toxin. He thinks he's manipulating the villain, but he's actually being played like a fiddle. Crane convinces Jason to create an anti-fear drug, and once the formula is ready, sends the kid to test his courage against the Joker. The result? Jason takes a crowbar beating until he's paced. A classic scene everyone saw coming.
Loud and clear, boss. Fuck the Joker.
But the humiliation doesn't end with death. Crane uses a clandestine Lazarus pit in the asylum basement to toss Jason's corpse into a vat of radioactive green soup. The kid resurrects, now fearless and brainless, adopting the name Red Hood.
Stand tall, Red Hood. Show them what they are.
His first mission is to save a child and hand them over to his friend Molly, announcing that he's now going to save Gotham by killing everyone, because his logic was dissolved along with his skin in that magic acid. Blackfire is out of her cage, but life at Wayne Manor is more toxic than Chernobyl. She treats everyone like servants, which offends Gar, but leaves Connor strangely aroused, given he's never seen a woman who wasn't a scientist or a mental projection. The Superman clone starts drooling over the evil alien, proving that a taste for dangerous women is genetic on the Luthor side of the family. Meanwhile, Dick and Barbara investigate a theft of medical equipment and were gifted with a flashback nobody asked for. We discover that in the past, Dick and Barbara used to play Bonnie and Clyde, robbing Gotham museums just for the adrenaline rush and to hook up on top of expensive artifacts. During one of these idiotic stunts, they faced an assassin named Lady Vic, who ended up accidentally killing her own partner because of the dynamic duo. Now, Lady Vic is back, hopped up on Scarecrow's anti-fear drug, and wants to turn Barbara into mincemeat. Dick gets all protective savior of the universe, but Barbara holds her own in a fight, even in a wheelchair. Meanwhile, Jason realizes he isn't Scarecrow's special little snowflake. Crane reveals that Red Hood is just a disposable tool and that he has other assassins like Lady Vic ready for the slaughter. Jason gets pissed when he realizes he traded one manipulative father for another and decides to rebel in the dumbest way possible. He steals the drug and hands it out to random street thugs, telling them to cause chaos. The target ends up being Tim Drake's family restaurant. The result of Jason's genius is Tim's dad taking a bullet to the chest and bleeding out on the floor, ensuring the tragedy quota needed to create another Robin. Because apparently, Gotham can't go 5 minutes without a traumatized orphan.
Call 911.
While Jason acts all needy, desperate for approval from his new toxic daddy, Scarecrow pretends to love the initiative, praising the boy just to manipulate him into taking more drugs and passing out. Jason officially has the situational awareness of a door, while Gar snoops around Wayne Manor playing junior detective and finds a letter from Jason's childhood friend. Scarecrow gathers Gotham's mob bosses. He explains his brilliant plan to drug the city's water supply to make everyone docile, essentially turning the population into tame cattle for him and the mob to rule. On the other side of town, Dick and Barbara decide to use Oracle. In this version, it's not Barbara in a wheelchair hacking the Pentagon, but a massive, illegal, autonomous supercomputer that does everything itself. Superboy and Dick use this steroid-boosted Alexa to find a lead-lined van where they find some poor soul with a bomb in his chest. The guy explodes before Connor can do anything, because apparently, super speed is no match for lazy riding. we find out Scarecrow used Lady Vic to hack Oracle, so now the villain has access to the Google Maps of crime. Parallel to this, Starfire decides to take her sociopathic sister Blackfire for a stroll to negotiate with a mob boss named Valeska. Valeska wants her son back, who ran away to avoid the criminal life. The alien sisters track him down, leading to a warped motivational talk where Blackfire admits she killed their parents because they were going to sacrifice her. A true moment of bizarre family bonding. They hand the son over to Valeska, who promptly shoots the kid in the head in front of everyone because he was an FBI informant. Starfire, shocked by human brutality, decides Valeska doesn't need to breathe anymore and disintegrates her. With the info gathered before the mobster barbecue, the Titans raid an abandoned ice cream factory, the perfect hideout for villains with sensitive teeth. They destroy the drug stockpile, but Jason and Scarecrow escape. The episode closes with Dick and Barbara deciding the best way to celebrate the near destruction of the city is to hook up, making them an official couple while Gotham continues to circle the drains. Scarecrow continues his pathetic saga of trying to poison Gotham's water, but Jason finally realizes that mass poisoning might be crossing a line and jumps ship. Crane gets sad without his pet Robin and seeks comfort from his own mother, a psychologist who hates her son more than the audience hates the season. When Mother Crane threatens to call the cops and calls him a disappointment, Scarecrow solves his family issues the classic Gotham way.
I forgive you.
Meanwhile, Gar is still delusional enough to think Jason can be saved and convinces his friend Molly to help. Starfire starts having visions of a baby with green eyes, which probably means Tamaranian physiology is finally paying the price for too many sleepless nights. Dick, for his part, goes after Jason but gets hit by a car in the middle of the street, proving that years of ninja training don't teach you to look both ways before crossing. Jason, in a fit of conscience, calls an ambulance for Dick. When Nightwing wakes up all hallucinating and loopy, he schedules a meeting with Jason in the sewers, the natural habitat of Ninja Turtles and depressed ex-Robins. Jason says he wants to quit the thug life, but Scarecrow is listening to everything because privacy is a dead concept in this show. And then comes Tim Drake. The kid shows up at Wayne Manor and throws it in Dick's face that he knows he's Nightwing because he saw him do a somersault at the circus when he was 5. Tim begs to be the new Robin, but Dick tells him to go do his homework. Stubborn as a mule, Tim follows Jason to Scarecrow's hideout. The villain catches the kid red-handed and, having no patience for meddling children, shoots Tim in the back, leaving him bleeding on the ground while Jason watches with a blank stare. The Titans arrive late, as usual. Starfire tries to stop Scarecrow from triggering the drug dispersal mechanism, but the genius villain rigged it so her powers act as the battery. So, congratulations, Starfire. You just blew up the facility and spread the fear toxin across the entire city, doing the villain's dirty work better than he ever could.
Are you telling me I just dosed all of Gotham?
The episode starts in Themyscira, where Raven is trying to resurrect Donna Troy, but her impatience ruins the Amazon's mystic ritual. As punishment, the Amazon leader makes Raven perform a Jenga-style test, stacking spinning stones. After failing miserably and knocking them down repeatedly, Raven realizes the test wasn't about motor skills, but about accepting that Donna is dead and that she needs to stop playing amateur necromancer. But the script has other plans. Cut to the afterlife, which apparently looks like a black and white express train. Tim Drake wakes up there confused and finds Donna Troy, who explains that this is the Hogwarts Express to the underworld. Tim refuses to accept dying a virgin and jumps off the train, with Donna following him. They land in a snowy forest and are attacked by soul-sucking ghouls until a car appears blasting Bon Jovi. It's Hank. Hawk is living his best afterlife driving a sports car and slaying monsters.
Hit it! Oh my god.
Looks like we got some catching up to do.
He takes the duo to a safe house and explains there's a bridge that can lead them back to life. Hank summons weapons through sheer willpower, but Donna can only summon soda bottles at first, proving her subconscious priorities are thirsty. Eventually, she gets her lasso back and they head for the Bridge of Resurrection. On the way, a horde of ghouls attacks. Hank tries to look badass with his spiritual nunchucks while the bridge starts to crumble. In a heroic act, Hank holds back the monsters so Donna and Tim can cross. Tim wakes up in the hospital, alive but with a bullet hole in his back. Donna wakes up just in time time to save Bruce Wayne from a fire, because Batman is useless without female help. In the end, Hank stays behind in the great beyond, accepting his fate, but the reward comes quickly when he reunites with his brother Don, the original Dove. The two embrace, ready to spend eternity kicking demon ass, showing that the afterlife is basically a never-ending co-op video game. Donna Troy finally hitches a taxi ride back to reality, thinking she'd arrive in Gotham in style. Instead, the driver decides his contract doesn't cover active war zones and kicks her out in the middle of nowhere. Forced to hike toward the gates like a commoner, she's barred by Lydia, the Amazon leader who's apparently salty about someone else's resurrection. Lydia decides Donna needs to pass yet another bureaucratic test because nothing screams urgency like filling out mystical paperwork with your fists. After trading blows and Donna proving she's worthy of leading or just really good at hitting things, she finally gets a hall pass to enter the city and start handing out beatdowns at the front desk. Meanwhile, Red Hood is having a total hissy fit because Gotham still prefers Batman, which deeply wounds his fragile ego. Scarecrow, acting as Hell's marketing manager, hacks every screen in the city to launch a smear campaign against the Titans. He offers cold hard cash for Nightwing, dead or alive, turning the city into a battle royale for the desperate. Instead of using his brain, Dick Grayson has the brilliant idea to turn himself into the GCPD, which everyone knows is more corrupt than a politician in an election year. He convinces the team and Barbara that getting arrested will send a message, and they actually agree, proving that stupidity is contagious. Naturally, as soon as they reach the station, the cops on Jason's payroll open fire. In the middle of the shootout, Starfire decides to heal her sister by taking a bullet for her, but a Wi-Fi download glitch occurs. Blackfire accidentally steals her powers, leaving Corey useless and her sister ready to barbecue.
What the hell did you just...
Barbara tries to save the day by shooting a dirty cop, but ends up in zip ties. Meanwhile, Beast Boy takes a tranquilizer dart to the neck and blacks out in the street, only to be woken up by Raven, who's back from Amazon summer camp. While the circus burns, Jason and Scarecrow break into Wayne Manor. Scarecrow, now living his best entitled elitist life, orders Jason to trash Bruce's family portraits while he sips the Bat's expensive whiskey, proving his true superpower is being a parasite with refined taste. Gotham has officially gone full Mad Max, with the internet cut off and the water supply spiked with fear juice. While Scarecrow laughs at the collapse of society, Tim Drake, fresh off his stay in the afterlife, finds his family. Being the ultimate nerd, he reveals he set up an underground LAN house in the basement of his parents' restaurant. Donna Troy rolls up expecting to find warriors, but instead finds a teenager with vintage PCs and furious parents who just want their son to stop playing superhero and go wash the dishes. On the other side of town, Starfire is going through superpower withdrawal and decides to help a random mother, only to get shot by a generic loan shark. As she bleeds out on a filthy floor, she has an alien telenovela flashback. She discovers her parents were liars, and that her sister Blackfire was the true heir to the fire, but had her powers magically stolen so Corey could be the popular queen. Infuriated by the telepathic family gossip, Starfire channels her rage, glows blue like a flickering neon sign, and vaporizes the thug. She discovers she always had power. She just needed some baseline trauma to unlock it. Meanwhile, Scarecrow continues his psychological bullying of Jason, who decides to challenge Dick to a fair, one-on-one street fight. Nightwing, proving to be the worst leader in history, uses kryptonite to knock out Superboy and Krypto, because apparently having an invincible alien on your side would be cheating. Dick goes in solo, pummels Jason, but forgets that Gotham is full of idiots. A random extra in the crowd shoots Dick in the neck, and the mob starts kicking the hero while he's down, while Jason cowards out back to the manor. There, Scarecrow finally goes full Joker. He rips off his own mask and slashes his face, deciding that facial hygiene is overrated and that he needs to embrace his inner and outer ugliness. He tops it off by killing a pizza delivery guy just to ensure no one else in the house gets any carbs. Blackfire, now boosted by her returned powers, decides that walking is for peasants and steals a car for a romantic joyride with Superboy and the dog. They head to a lab to fix her ship and bail on this horrible planet. The scientist says they're out of fuel, but Superboy, in a moment of peak toxic masculinity and extreme neediness, realizes that if his girlfriend leaves, he'll be lonely. So he does what any unstable clone would do. He discreetly blows up her ship.
You okay?
Meanwhile, Dick Grayson is swimming in the Lazarus Pit, enjoying a hallucination where Scarecrow tries to convince him he's human trash. Dick overcomes his daddy issues, dreams of a future daughter to motivate the plot, and screams his way out of the pit, healed and ready to get beaten up again. Unfortunately, the magic acid ate his suit. At the precinct, Barbara gets tired of Scarecrow's boring monologues, beats up her jailer, and escapes to the Oracle room. Tim Drake and Donna try to evacuate civilians in an armored truck, but get stopped at the border by dirty cops. Tim decides it's his time to shine, ignores the logic that he just came back to life, and throws himself into the fight thinking he's Robin, while Donna does the actual heavy lifting for the team. Dick finds Jason, and in a stunning display of zero self-respect, forgives the brother who tried to kill him 30 times in the last week. They decide to raid Batman's arsenal, but they're too late. A faceless, clueless Scarecrow has already stolen hundreds of fear gas bombs to turn Gotham into a permanent hallucinogenic rave. Basically, the Titans are always 5 steps behind, and the city remains the worst place in the universe to live. With Gotham burning and the Titans pinned down in a shootout that looks like a laggy Call of Duty match, Tim Drake decides it's a great time to test the moves he learned from YouTube tutorials, only to discover that real life doesn't have a respawn timer. Fortunately, before the Boy Wonder becomes a statistic, Rachel and Gar show up to save the day, proving that death in this show is about as permanent as a politician's promise. Tim's parents, in an act of questionable parenting, look at their son and decide the safest place for him isn't fleeing the city, but in the middle of an urban war zone next to people in costumes. Meanwhile, Blackfire exhibits the fastest Stockholm Syndrome in the West by forgiving Superboy for blowing up her ship. The clone with megalomaniac baldman DNA gives her the puppy dog eyes, and Corey ends up angrier than the actual victim, proving their alien family dynamic is based entirely on screaming and property damage. At the station, V reveals she isn't just a high-end extra, she's an Argus agent, pulling resources out of her pocket to help Nightwing locate Scarecrow's bombs. Dick Grayson, in a moment of post-magical bath clarity, realizes the villain is using the oldest trick in the book, distracting the idiots while the real plan unfolds. Red Hood shows up at Wayne Manor pretending to be scared to distract the guards, allowing Beast Boy, transformed into a drunk, stumbling bat, to hack the system. When the vegan hacker fails because he forgot the Wi-Fi password, Tim Drake takes over the keyboard. He uses his fanboy knowledge of Batman to bypass the computer, locking down the bombs and leaving Scarecrow looking like he just lost his game save.
I've got one more try at this or I'm locked out. Try Selena Kyle.
Welcome.
Who's Selena?
With the villain KO'd by a teenager's punch, the team decides to play God again. They use the Lazarus Pit to create a purple rainstorm, basically turning Gotham into a Prince music video. Raven acts as a darkness vacuum, Blackfire holds back the dirty water with a shield, and Donna uses her lasso to fight lightning. The rain falls, the dead rise like it's a Monday morning, and everything turns out fine. In the end, the team splits up. Donna heads to France to deliver spiritual voicemails. Dick and Barbara end their bland romance, and Bruce returns to forgive Jason, who murdered a lot of people but had a good heart. Before they head to San Francisco to live the high life, Raven decides she doesn't want to keep all that accumulated darkness inside. She vomits all the evil and nightmares of Gotham directly into Scarecrow's mind at Arkham Asylum, ensuring his therapy bills stay astronomical for eternity. Season 4 kicks off with the Titans thinking life is a bowl of cherries, so they go bowling. Nothing says professional heroes like wearing rental shoes and knocking down plastic pins. But the joy of the poor is short-lived. Bruce calls, sending everyone to Metropolis so Connor can finally meet Superman. However, upon arriving at Star Labs, they discover the Man of Steel ghosted his own clone to go save a distant galaxy, likely the most elaborate excuse in history to avoid paying child support. While Connor deals with paternal rejection, Lex Luthor, the most toxic bald man on the planet, steps out of the shadows. He invites the kid for a chat, completely ignoring Nightwing's warnings that this will end badly. Corey, tired of waiting, storms LexCorp alone, trashing private security like they're made of cardboard, only to find Lex playing mental chess. He offers Superboy the chance to run his empire, claiming he created the boy to be the perfect heir, a fusion of alien strength, human ambition, and imminent male pattern baldness. Connor, in a classic move of team rebellion, ignores his friends and agrees to stay with Lex, hoping to find a purpose. But the plot pivots into a B-list horror movie when Lex reveals he's dying and needs help with an occult book filled with drawings uglier than a prison tattoo. Before they can translate the evil Sanskrit, Lex takes a turn for the worse, in a scene that would make any gastroenterologist quit the profession, he vomits a giant snake out of his mouth. Yes, a serpent slithers out of the billionaire's throat, tries to bite Connor, and dies. Lex drops dead. And security bursts in to find Superboy alone with the corpse, ensuring his Metropolis visit goes from family reunion to felony charges in record time. Meanwhile, a fired old lady smiles downstairs, proving that LexCorp's HR department is truly the most dangerous sector of the company. The episode opens with a slasher movie vibe. A masked figure invades a suburban home and massacres a family, because apparently Gotham wasn't the only cursed place on the map. Meanwhile, in jail, Connor is trapped in a glass box with green lights that nullify his powers. Basically a radioactive crib for Kryptonian meatheads. Dick and Corey try to play CSI, Metropolis, to clear Superboy's name. The alien princess goes to Lex's mansion and finds the only survivor of the bald man's inner circle, a guy named Nelson. He reveals Lex was messing with cultists and forbidden archaeology, but before he can name names, he coughs up another snake and dies. Apparently, this high-fiber diet is backfiring. Meanwhile, Rachel has a vision and drags Dick to the original crime scene. They find a girl named Arya trapped in a nightmare. Raven pulls an Inception, enters the girl's mind, and drives out the masked killer with a goth scream. Across town, we meet Sebastian, a failed game dev trying to sell a revolutionary idea to executives who look at him with the disdain of a FIFA player. The poor guy starts hallucinating people bleeding from their eyes, suggesting he's either the next host for Madness, or he's just played too much VR. The Titans find a warehouse full of victims who are still alive. Rachel fights a bird-beaked ninja, and Connor is released because the police realized that snakes crawling out of mouths isn't exactly Superboy's MO. But the honeymoon ends when a sorceress named Mother Mayhem intercepts the group on the road. She tosses a spell that sends Connor flying and, in a masterclass nerf, sucks out Raven's powers. This causes her forehead gem to vanish and her hair to turn white instantly. Now we have an albino, powerless Raven, a humiliated Superboy, and a bunch of cultists chanting in a basement, ready to trigger the apocalypse while Sebastian continues to freak out at home. Just another Tuesday for these dysfunctional youths. With her forehead gem ripped out and an albino look straight out of a My Chemical Romance fan club, Rachel heads back to base feeling empty, which technically makes her the most authentic teenager in the group. While she wallows in her soulless bad vibes, Dick Grayson decides the best way to solve magic problems is to break a criminal out of jail. He and Corey go get Jinx, a thief with the annoying ability to turn into wind and disappear faster than the money in your bank account.
Might be able to tell us who hit us last night.
Meanwhile, blood magic is working overtime, manifesting as a spider that kills innocent workers, proving that workplace safety in Gotham is an urban legend. The culprit is May Bennett, aka Mother Mayhem, who decides to recruit Sebastian, the failed game dev. He goes to pitch his project to investors, but the witch interferes, turning a business meeting into a live snuff film. The cops show up and haul off poor Sebastian, who probably just wanted to sell some in-game skins. Gar starts hallucinating again, seeing everything in red and hearing the voices of skinwalkers. Basically the paranormal version of forgetting to take your meds. On the other side of town, Dick and Corey take Jinx on a heist, but the curious alien decides to open the forbidden box and instantly turns into a stone statue.
Is that a heart?
Now Dick has to lug his doorstop girlfriend around, while Jinx's voice claims only a dark elf can reverse it. They raid a secret nightclub where Dick pummels goons and KOs the elf, only to realize he's been played. Jinx rigged the whole thing because she owed the elf $5 million and used Nightwing as a co-signer. Once Dick pays off the debt like a responsible sugar daddy, Corey stops being granted. Tim and Connor track down Sebastian, but Mother Mayhem gets there first, trying to seduce the nerd with talk of changing the world and repeating magic words. Before he can sign a contract contract with the devil. Connor smashes through the walls. The witch retreats, but leaves with a smile, knowing the game is far from over. Meanwhile, Gar discovers the voices in his head are prophesying that the world will fall when the blood moon rises, which means another apocalyptic Tuesday is coming for this dysfunctional team. We flash back to 1996, where May Bennett proves she hates Mondays by killing her boss with her mind after being fired for the 4th time that year. A mysterious recruiter from a sect that is definitely not a pyramid scheme gives her a card. Cut to the future. She's in a trust-building exercise that involves jumping into a dark pit. Like a true girl boss, she shoves her competitor to her death and emerges victorious, securing her spot in Hell's HR department. In the present, Rachel and Sebastian swap trauma stories. He admits May wanted him to repeat 3 words, and Rachel instantly recognizes the demonic chant, because nothing screams family like a Trigon invocation. The team discovers that the old asylum where May was raised is now a generic supermarket, because capitalism always wins in the end. They raid the place and discover May has been monitoring Sebastian his whole life, like a macabre reality show where the grand prize is the apocalypse. It turns out May got pregnant by Trigon, but because the baby was a boy, the prophecy hit a 404 error and he was discarded. In other words, Sebastian is Rachel's rejected brother, who has basically been filler until now. Suddenly, zombified guards attack. Rachel, who's apparently been playing Doom, grabs a chainsaw and starts slicing through the undead, but the rotting cherry on top is when a zombie Deathstroke appears. Connor, in a moment of pure testosterone, punches his head so hard it flies off, but the villain's body just picks it up and snaps it back into place like a Lego.
Okay, go!
During the chaos, Connor gets stabbed but pretends he's fine because Kryptonian men don't cry. They escape, but in the bathroom, Superboy vomits up another magic snake. He decides not to tell anyone that he's currently acting as a surrogate host for demonic reptiles, proving that communication in this team is as dead as the guards they just decapitated. Sebastian keeps having nightmares about runaway trains, a subtle metaphor for his life going down the tubes. Rachel tries to act like a motivational coach, saying he can get off the train, but the real problem is Connor acting weird. The clone starts malfunctioning inside Star Labs, and the magic snake decides it wants to go for a stroll. Jinx realizes the only way to save Superboy is a magic extraction combined with some weird science. The plan? Turn Beast Boy into a microscopic virus and inject him into Connor's body. Gar, always down to get into tight spots for the team, accepts the mission to go deep inside his friend. He shrinks, enters the bloodstream, and starts hunting the snake from the inside in a gross biological version of inner space. While Gar navigates the Kryptonian's guts, Dick stays outside monitoring the vitals and breaking a cold sweat. Virus Gar finds the parasite and attacks, causing Connor to go into cardiac arrest. Dick slams him with adrenaline, and in a scene that would make a gastroenterologist faint, the snake comes slithering out of Connor's mouth. Tim Drake finally does something useful and kills the thing out with a solid baton strike. While Gar emerges from his friend's body, likely needing a lot of therapy and a very long shower, Corey discovers her destiny isn't to save Sebastian, but to kill him, which would have been a lot easier if she'd read the manual first. But before she can process this, Mother Mayhem attacks the diner where they're hiding. The witch mops the floor with Starfire's face, proving that prophecies don't mean squat in an honest scrap. Seeing the alien about to be turned into a kebab, Sebastian decides to be the ultimate simp. To save the woman he just met, he surrenders, recites the cursed words, and unleashes Trigon's power, plunging the world into absolute chaos just because he couldn't stand to see a pretty girl get hit. Congratulations, Sebastian. You just condemned humanity because of a crush, while the world risks ending in a blood apocalypse. Corey and Rachel head back to Star Labs to do what they do best, lament that they lost Sebastian. Little do they know, our favorite useless guy is having the best day of his life at the hands of Mother Mayhem. She keeps trying to shove a thick, viscous red liquid down his throat, promising that if he swallows it all, he'll become a real man. Meanwhile, Connor has decided that having hair is for the weak. He shaves his head in a fit of Lex Luthor cosplay, adopting a Kryptonian Johnny Sins look, ready to screw over everyone's life. He rolls into the base with peak confidence, suggesting the solution to a murderous cult is, shocker, killing the cultists. But the Titans, with their Saturday morning cartoon morality, are appalled by the idea of violence. The bald clone has no time for their whining, so he uses satellites to block out the moon, proving that a motivated idiot is more dangerous than a lazy genius. Down the hall, Gar is hearing voices and having visions again. Apparently, turning into a virus and swimming in his friend's gastric juices in the last episode left permanent brain damage. A voice tells him to go to the red when the tower falls, which sounds like a terrible GPS instruction.
Looks like you're not all the way back yet, are you?
No.
Jinx has the brilliant idea to use teleportation, but Connor, now fully embracing the asshole CEO role, calls everyone useless, humiliates the lab staff, and decides to solo the dungeon. He hacks the system, finds the hideout, and goes there to offer his body to Mother Mayhem. And of course, like any tank who pulls without a healer, he falls into a trap in 2 seconds. He gets tied up and left there, helpless, waiting for someone to come play with him. The remaining Titans arrive to save the day, but they're too late. Jinx tries to work some magic, but ends up fatally penetrated by Mother Mayhem, proving her luck has finally run out. Corey tries to use her powers but fails miserably, and even White Raven can't stop the inevitable. Sebastian looks at the chalice full of that forbidden juice and decides he's tired of being an NPC in his own life. He downs the whole thing, feeling the thick power slide down his throat, and finally accepts his destiny. A shockwave knocks down anyone who wasn't holding on to their pants.
Be nothing.
Sebastian emerges from his blood pool, looking like he just stepped out of a demonic spa, now going by the moniker Brother Blood. Apparently, he felt the need for a gothic rave DJ stage name. While he and Mother Dearest plan to bring Trigon back for a Sunday barbecue, the Titans are busy licking their wounds and crying in the corner. Raven uses her buffed up powers to free Jinx's soul since her body is already toast anyway. Connor, still in his rebellious bald teen phase, finds a little letter from Daddy Lex in a secret bunker. He reads it, picks up a few tips on how to be a corporate villain, and bails for parts unknown, likely to find a dominatrix, given he runs into Mercy Graves. With that I'm in charge of the bedroom vibe, she hands Connor some high-tech toys and tells him to go play by himself. Meanwhile, Tim Drake and Bernard decide to have the fastest relationship talk in history. They break up to keep things professional, only to be sharing a cheap roadside motel room 5 minutes later, proving the flesh is weak and the writing is indecisive. Dick sets out to decipher alien languages, uncovering the shocking truth that Starfire will have to sacrifice herself to stop Trigon. Great news to break to your girlfriend over breakfast, Dick. Speaking of disaster, the Titans are suddenly teleported to Call's Folly, a small town that looks like it crawled out of a 1950s suburban nightmare. Corey mysteriously starts feeling sick, probably allergic to towns with low property taxes, and Dick tries to talk to the sheriff, thinking local authority will actually help. Spoiler, it won't. Dick walks into the station thinking he's Batman, but gets beaten like an intern and tossed outside where the Church of Blood is already waiting to party. Meanwhile, Raven is drugged at a diner by a waiter and his father, because in this town, everyone is the devil's accomplice. Apparently, the citizens think the Titans want to resurrect the demon, when really, they just wanted a decent burger. Now, with the leader captured and the witch roofied, the team's chances of success are thinner than Connor's hairline. Dick and Corey wake up in a strange house, dressed like extras in a bad sitcom, answering to the names Ted and Carol. They find photos of themselves living a mediocre life in this town, proving the brainwashing here is based on fulfilling lower middle class dreams. While they play house, Sebastian is introduced to the congregation holding the Horn of Trigon, a long, hard object he recovered with great effort and now displays with pride to earn the cult's respect. The new Brother Blood decides he wants to kill Raven personally. He finds her tied up and ready for execution, only to discover a kinky psychic link between them. Whatever he does to her, he feels himself. If he hits her, he feels the pain. Basically, the combat system has turned into a magical BDSM session where no one gets off. Everyone just suffers. As Dick and Corey try to maintain their suburban couple act, they record cassette tapes of their memories because nothing screams cutting-edge tech like magnetic tape. Dick finally realizes the town's music is frying everyone's brains. He resists the urge to dance and chooses violence against the sheriff and his useless goons. Outside this pocket dimension, Tim and Bernard, now back together and happy, notice Corey is emitting a radio signal. Bernard, using his hacker fingers, invades the town's frequency and starts playing his own playlist playlist to break the spell. Dick reaches the local radio station, fights the urge to give in to the rhythm, and smashes the equipment. The dimensional barrier drops. The town returns to normal, and Corey gets her explosive personality back. But just as things seem to be settling, Connor shows up in front of Sebastian. Instead of punching the villain's lights out, the bald wonder proposes a mysterious alliance, proving once again that the only consistent thing about this character is his ability to make stupid decisions based on whoever gives him the most attention. Gar finally wakes up from his existential nap in a cave that smells like mold and despair, greeted by a bizarre lion-bat hybrid and a masked nutjob calling himself Freedom Beast. The masked man explains that Gar needs to learn about the Red, a cosmic force connecting all animal life, but the only connection Gar feels right now is the realization he's been played for a fool his whole life. While trying to process this cheap, mystical lore, Gar remembers that Niles Calder, the manipulative old man in the wheelchair, was the one who gave him his powers while supposedly saving his life, creating more trauma than solutions. The motivational speech is interrupted by generic soldiers who appear only to be slaughtered by Freedom Beast, who displays martial arts skills and brute force like he's in a video game tutorial. He offers Gar a suspicious elixir to unlock his potential, and since our green hero never learned not to take drinks from strangers in dark caves, he downs the vial. The result is a hallucinogenic trip where he chats with visions of Raven and the late Jinx, who basically tell him to stop being a burden and man up. Jacked up on magic juice and childhood trauma, Gar and his new master storm a lab where monkeys are being tortured. They discover all the primates have been killed except one, in a scene that would make any activist weep blood. In a moment of pure brutality and body horror, Freedom Beast uses his powers to fuse the lead scientist with the dying monkey, creating a mess of flesh and bone that resolves the problem by dying immediately. But the real cruel joke comes when Gar finds papers proving Dear Daddy Niles purposefully created the disease that killed Gar's family just to recruit someone for his Doom Patrol. Now that Gar realizes his entire life was manipulated by a sadistic old man, he accepts his destiny as the avatar of the Red. He dives so deep into the universal connection that he begins traveling the multiverse, seeing the Flash running in another CW show, chatting with Stargirl, and even encountering the cartoon version of himself from Teen Titans Go. After this overdose of fan service and references, he literally falls from the sky and lands at the Doom Patrol mansion, passing out at the feet of Cyborg, who finally shows up to remind us he's still in this show. While Gar takes a 3-day nap after his multiversal trip, Connor continues his bald Lex Luthor cosplay, offering Sebastian the keys to the kingdom at LexCorp. The goal is simple: launch a video game that is every indie dev's dream, except this one actually steals souls. Sebastian, in a late blooming adolescent rebellion, discovers Mother Mayhem was just using him, so he does the logical thing and kills his own mother before taking the stage with Connor to announce they're going to dominate the world through capitalism and predatory mobile gaming. Meanwhile, at the Doom Patrol mansion, the house has been taken over by giant plants because apparently gardening isn't their forte. Corey, trying to be helpful, walks through a magic door and ends up trapped there too, turning the place into a dysfunctional alumni reunion. To pass the time while the world ends, Corey and Gar decide to play a game of indoor tennis against the patrol, proving this team's priorities are fascinating. Between swings, Corey has an epiphany about her mortality, because nothing inspires deep reflection like sweating in a purple unitard. On the other side of the plot, the game Abrasius is launched and becomes an instant hit, sucking the life force out of internet-addicted kids to fuel Sebastian's dark magic. Even Robin's boyfriend, Bernard, decides to test the game and almost gets his soul devoured, proving hackers aren't immune to stupidity.
Good enough to look into, yeah?
Thank you.
Dick and Rachel race against time in a mystic ritual to sever the psychic umbilical cord between her and her evil brother, hoping it stops Sebastian from using her as a voodoo doll. When the plan for world domination via game streaming starts to fail, thanks to Tim Drake finally finding a keyboard and being useful, plus secret help from Connor, Sebastian starts to lose it. He has visions of his dead mother in the morgue and realizes the only way to get what he wants is to stop playing CEO and go back to his satanic roots. He decides it's time to grab Daddy Trigon's horn and give it a good blow blow to bring hell to Earth, because if capitalism failed, the apocalypse is the next logical step. With the cursed video game offline, Sebastian and Connor vanish, leaving the Titans scratching their heads. Dick Grayson decides that Tim Drake, after seasons of serving as tech support and a punching bag, finally deserves to wear the official pajamas and become the new Robin. Tim heads back to Gotham sporting his new suit to impress Jason Todd, who is still playing Red Hood. Jason, in an attempt to sound tough and mentor-like, claims he leaked his own location on purpose just to test the kid's balls, validating the existence of the new boy wonder. Meanwhile, the immortal cockroach known as Mother Mayhem resurrects yet again, proving that bad weeds never die. She finds Sebastian in Connor's luxury penthouse and hands him the secret to bringing Trigon back. Sebastian, hungry for power and tired of being the less popular sibling, drinks an acolyte's blood like it's a juice box, unlocking his full Mexican soap opera villain potential. Connor, who was either faking being evil this whole time or is just extremely confused, returns to the Titans with a genius plan. Use a fusion core charged with Corey's starfire energy to blow up the ritual. He volunteers to carry the bomb to the temple, hoping to stop Sebastian from blowing the devil's horn. But since Dick Grayson is a sentimental, soft leader, he didn't let Corey charge the core to full power, afraid of hurting his alien girlfriend. The result of this romantic incompetence is catastrophic.
Shit.
At the temple, Sebastian kills his mother again, just to be sure, impacting her with the horn of Trigon. Connor tries to play the hero and tosses the energy core at the villain's back, but the explosion is as pathetic as a wet firecracker. Sebastian, now transformed into Brother Blood and looking like a gothic vampire cosplayer, turns around and seemingly kills Connor without breaking a sweat. With Superboy out of the game and the Titans watching helplessly once again, Sebastian profanes the air with the sound of the horn, tearing the sky open and bringing Daddy Trigon back to turn the planet into his personal barbecue pit. Trigon barely has time to unpack before he's gone, because Sebastian decides the best way to resolve his daddy issues is to get the demon father minutes after his invocation. Proving this family's diet is based on questionable bodily fluids, he drinks the old man's blood like it's hellish whey protein and bails. Meanwhile, the Titans show the peak of their competence by getting barred at the cult's front door because they don't know the password, forcing Rachel to use spectator mode to see Connor's body lying on the ground like a melted wax figure. With the buffed up villain out of the picture, the team enters, recovers the Kryptonian carcass, and decides to use red kryptonite to bring him back, which works basically like a radioactive Red Bull for the dead. Tim Drake finally shows up sporting the Robin suit he probably stole from Dick's closet, thinking he's actually going to make a difference besides serving as bait. But the group's intelligence fails again when they realize they went to the wrong place. Sebastian, now going by the cheesy title of Brother Blood, has stormed Star Labs to use a wormhole to blow up Tamaran, because destroying Earth was getting too cliche. Since the machine needs an extra battery, he decides to plug Corey into the system, sucking her energy with a veracity that would make an adult film star worried about the age rating.
Taker escape power sequence initiated.
The Titans storm the lab, and while Dick and Tim do circus acrobatics to distract the villain, Guard takes on the glorious role of IT technician and starts pulling plugs. Rachel tries to fix Corey, who is more burnt out than a student during finals week. That's when Connor flies in, full of alien steroids, and helps Dick hurl Sebastian into the generator, frying the villain like a cheap French fry. However, Corey is unstable, glowing brighter than a cheap roadside motel sign. She decides it's time for a dramatic sacrifice, grabs the gothic vampire and flies into the stratosphere, exploding in a massive fireball. The Titans look at the sky, fully prepared for a tearful mourning scene. But Corey simply floats back down, intact and with perfect hair, tossing all the emotional weight of her death into the trash. With the world saved by pure luck, the group decides to end the series with an awkward dinner before dissolving faster than an 80s rock band. Gar goes off to be a hippie in the red. Rachel is off to get bullied at a community college. Connor finally takes flight lessons with Superman. And Tim goes back to part-time vigilante work. Dick and Corey, free of responsibilities and bad writing, walk away hand in hand, praying no one announces a spin-off.
Yeah,